it was in that moment that I looked back and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I can go back to how I was. I know how that road goes. It's miserable, right? And so I considered what I like to call the cost of inaction. And for me, that cost was everything. Because now that I considered what else would be possible, that's all I needed to take that leap. So it wasn't on a spreadsheet. That was a download that was channeled and much more of an inner knowing.
I know you've talked about this time and time again, but was there a particular moment or a particular, was it a number on a spreadsheet for you to allow you to have that conviction to take the leap of faith to start your, journey into entrepreneurship?
Quite the contrary. So for me, it was an inner knowing. So my experience on Wall Street started to become very misaligned. It was no longer fun. I think more the stress and the anxiety was outweighing the good. And I started to lose myself in the process because I was developing and I was growing and I just felt no longer aligned to the consciousness of that world. Nothing against it. I was just evolving. And so I knew that I was here for something more, but I didn't take the time. I was kind of in it. I had my own business and you know how it is in that world. If you're not going 300 miles an hour, you're getting left behind. So I just kept going. But I knew I held on to the fact, even when my personal life began to unravel and I was at my rock bottom, I held on to the fact that I knew that there was something more that my soul was here to do. But it wasn't until the lockdown in the pandemic where I was able to really have that space to connect with the creator and really cultivate that inner knowing that was more like, if not now, then when? And it was in that moment that I looked back and I'm like, yeah, I could do that. I can go back to how I was. I know how that road goes. It's miserable, right? And so I considered what I like to call the cost of inaction. And for me, that cost was everything. Because now that I considered what else would be possible, that's all I needed to take that leap. So it wasn't on a spreadsheet. That was a download that was channeled and much more of an inner knowing.
You talk about manufacturing breakthroughs and reinvention all the time. What was that like for you growing up? We're overlooking Long Island City in the background here. Tell me about, if you don't mind, your upbringing, kind of what that experience was like for you as it relates to building this rigor of thought around self-help, mindset, motivation, and being kind of the captain of your own journey. Was that something instilled in you from a young age, or what was kind of that growing process like for you as a sentient adult?
It's really crazy, man, because I had two lives in this incarnation, one prior to 2020 and one after 2020. And so I think back at the time, and I come from a very close family. I have one sibling, my best friend in the world, my brother Mark. He's 8 years older than me. And my parents, they're still kicking. They're a little bit older. Love them so much. I'll say this. They did an amazing job with the tools that they had and the intentions that they cultivated. But they never instilled in me, go out, be anything you want in this world, or what do you like? What is your passions? What are your dreams? I didn't know anything about personal development. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was a little bit lost. I always had quote unquote potential, but I would say that it wasn't channeled in the right trajectory, right? And so when I came back from college and I was at home and I was like butting heads with my mom a little bit, it's like, I gotta start my life. I gotta do something. And I'd always been infatuated with money and stocks, and I live in New York. And so through a friend, I got an opportunity on Wall Street, and it was at that very moment that I made a decision, a conscious decision. I'm gonna start my life. I'm gonna become a man. And I also stumbled upon personal development at the same time. I was watching YouTube videos of like E.T. and all these people, Tony Robbins. Now, ironically, those are my peers and my friends. They hire me for stuff. But I started to realize that you can develop yourself. You can think bigger. You can cultivate conviction, confidence. There's something bigger going on here. And so it wasn't until really after college that I started to take calculated risks and really begin to explore what was possible. At that season of life, it was Wall Street. But to answer your question, growing up, I didn't have access. I didn't know any of this stuff really existed until right before Wall Street.
It's interesting. I was talking to one of my previous guests about the future of higher education and whether, our kids' generation will go to a traditional 4-year college because they're going to be able, and they already have access to YouTube shorts and Instagram reels and TikToks and can kind of go down rabbit holes, whether it be bad stuff that's, at the top of the news today or good stuff like some of these, personal development, uh, you know, shorts that both of us, that pops up on both of our feeds all the time. I'm curious from your perspective, 10, 15 years ago, and correct me on timeline if I'm wrong, but when you first started finding these YouTube videos, obviously the algorithms weren't how they were today. Do you remember that first video that got your hook on the personal development side? That was probably peak TED Talk days back then, and maybe Simon Sinek was really kind of on the up and up as it relates to getting popular on YouTube and in the personal development space. But was there a particular video that caught your attention? And I only ask because I remember mine was a little bit, didn't necessarily coincide with moving back from college. It was a couple of years later when I remember starting to come across the Robin Sharmas and the Wayne Dyers of the world, but it wasn't really like I remember hearing on a podcast and doing my deep dive. But what was that like for you?
I remember very specifically, you just brought me back. So it was Eric Thomas, E.T., the hip hop preacher, who's now a friend. And it was that video that he had that I think went viral. That was like, succeed as bad as you want to breathe. Right. And it got me so jazzed about life. It inspired me. It made me want to play a bigger game. And at that time, there was no social media or anything like that, as far as I know. So I just went down the rabbit hole of YouTube videos. And I found like, they used to make these compilations of like movies and like Rocky and The Dark Knight Rises, and like inspirational stuff, Gladiator. I'd get so into that. But really, E.T.'s video really got me like understanding that there's like these different personal development characters. It's almost like where the cinematic universe, where Marvel has the Avengers, there's many different people in the space that teach on different things. And so he stuck out to me. He was going nuts. It was what I needed at that time. And then that quickly evolved into NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And I began to see a mentor live in New York City once a week for years. And I began to sharpen and develop my skills of reframing how I perceive the world, which was very helpful. But it's funny, it's a great question that you asked, because I had never thought about that until this moment, until you asked. It was that specific video, and it was definitely Eric Thomas.
Mm.
You're familiar with ET?
I'm actually not. No, I need to.
Really?
I gotta queue up that YouTube video. Yeah. Again, there's all that cinematic universe in
If you
professional.
look him up, I'm pretty certain you'll recognize him in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
got
it's
a
interesting. I mean, in this cinematic universe of professional development, personal mindset growth.
2010,
Okay.
2011. I would.
Yeah, I see him. I see him here now. That I've seen a reel or a clip or two of him, but I'm it wasn't top of mind. It's interesting,
Yeah.
in today's day and age, there's just so much out there, and it's, to your point, really aligning with who's kind of coming, whether it's from your interests and hobbies or from your professional background that goes on to this world. It's, I mean, for me, I read The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma, and that was the big unlock for me like 4 or 5 years ago, to realize, hey, there's more than just, seeing your account balance go up from grinding it out 80, 90 hours a week. For you, though, coming from the lending back, coming from Wall Street, what was that like for you, kind of finding that pivot moment and kind of realizing there's more out there? You said it was 2020, but how did you just give it all up from to your point, you're going 300 miles an hour before. It's a huge, I mean, when you're starting your own business, as I've come to learn over the last couple of months, there's so much to do all the time, but it's a very, very different structure. So what was that like for you in terms of making that jump and kind of going into the world of the unknown?
We have to go deeper right now. You mind if I poke around a little bit? So
Please.
the idea here is consciousness, right? We're all here on our own individual journeys. Our souls have a journey, a correction to make. If you're doing something that you don't love, ask yourself why. What is the reason that you're stuck? Is there some sort of attachment? Is there a sense of lack? Is it the old, I have to pay the bills, I don't know what else there is? Get curious. Why am I doing that? That's very tangible. And now, for someone that's listening, like, okay, but I know I want to do something else. I know I'm here for more. Well, what does that look like? Well, what do you love? What would you want to sink your teeth into? What are you good at? What has you jazzed that if you could make money doing it would be the winning ticket? And even just this conversation, staying in the question, you're receiving downloads. See, the problem with thinking that you know all the answers, it's very limiting. When you stay in that question, you have unlimited access to the unlimited. Most people can't even fathom just how unlimited the unlimited really is. I'm talking about something bigger, divine intelligence, called creator, God, universe, quantum, whatever's good for you, right? So being able to ask these questions, now we can receive downloads. By the way, this is exactly what I did in the lockdown when I was looking for what else is possible with my life. And so I want to just take it more to a spiritual level,
Let's go.
right? So anybody can stay stuck in something and make every excuse in the book as to why they're not happy or why they can't leave. But if you break it down on a spiritual level, is what I'm doing fulfilling? And if it is not, that is the greatest feedback that you need to consider what else might be possible. And if you're brave enough to stay in that question, you will receive downloads.
I think the question that popped up in my head a lot, and I'm constantly getting back there to be in a state where I can receive those downloads personally is, whether it's getting your mind right in the mornings, going to the gym, meditation, whatever it might be. But even understanding that there is that universe to go, and the universe is speaking to you at all times. Again, reason for everything, whether you're turning the corner and bump into an old colleague, or you spill your coffee on yourself and you end up running late and you find out this big idea in your head because of the change in path. There's so many things in life that happen for you, not to you. And that this reason for everything mantra was my way of trying to remind myself, hey, you just have to open your eyes and things are happening all the time, all around you. What was that like for you how did you first start getting your downloads, if you will, for this kind of next awakening that you've been talking about?
Well, I started running marathons a little bit before the pandemic as I was trying to find myself and really expand my capacity for life. And I'd never been a runner before. So for me, I was looking to do something really uncomfortable. And I started running marathons, and I read 9 since then. And I became really obsessed with them, for lack of better words. There's a strong desire to continue to push myself. And when I would run on these long runs, I did what I call a moving meditation, where I would channel some of the best downloads I ever received. There's just something beautiful that happens. Sometimes I listen to music or podcast, but if nothing's on and I'm just channeling, I receive downloads. But make no mistake about it, you have to create the space, right? So morning routines, meditation, that's all great. But do you have a consistent daily discipline where you create that type of white space to just receive? See, people think that they're busy, but the interesting part is when you're busy, when you're grinding, when you're back to back all day, you don't have the space to receive. And by the way, sometimes there's a season for that. You're getting something off the ground, right? You got to put in those hours, absolutely. But you have to make time for that space, because the greatest ROI that you'll ever receive is through that space, because that's when you have access to the unlimited, right? So this can't be a once in a while practice. You have to flex the muscle of doing this every single day. It's crazy to me. Like some people, they just go about their day, and it's like Groundhog's Day, right? Or in the Matrix. And if you don't take that time to pause and to connect, then what is this all for? What is the sake of all this, right? Because those downloads will create some sort of guidance for you as to whether you're on the right path, if what you're doing is the right thing, should you consider something else, or really anything in between. So for me, every morning I have a 2-hour routine. It's non-negotiable. So if I want to get more sleep, then I have to improve by going to sleep earlier, which, by the way, is something I am working on as we speak. But that 2-hour morning routine is so beautiful. It's like, picture your phone, right? You wake up, maybe your phone's at 40%. I don't know about you, but I like to charge it up and have 100%, right? So that's what you're doing to your soul every morning. If you take that time, you're charging up 100%, you're elevating your consciousness. Now you could take on the day, especially like in the nature of what I do. I'm trying to change the world. I'm pouring into people all day long. Just a lot of energy, right? It's so important for me to be charged up. So every single day I know now that's non-negotiable. And if you're busy, if you're running around, if you're traveling, maybe the routine will be shorter, absolutely. But taking that time for a little bit of space has absolutely got to be primary in your life. Otherwise, the day will just run you.
Yeah. How did you change that muscle, or change the muscle and start using it in this fashion kind of getting out of the finance world, right? I mean, so often we're trained to wake up, check your phone, see what fires you have to put out that day. So there's a lot of discipline, to your point, in giving yourself 2 hours to focus on yourself, close out the downloads you received while you were, recharging overnight. What was that shift like for you to be able to say, hey, this will be here when I get to it. I need to, round out my downloads from the evening and focus on my morning routine?
So I'm relentless about my spiritual work. I'm relentless about my growth. They call it spiritual work because it is work.
Yeah.
And so I also study the wisdom of Kabbalah. It's not a religion, it's a technology, it's a spirituality. In fact, whatever it is that somebody believes in, it'll just enhance that connection with whatever that works for you. It's amazing. It's mind-blowing. It teaches the laws of cause and effect. It provides a blueprint for the human soul. And so a lot of the stuff that I learned from that, from both studying it and mentoring in it, is this ability to create that space. And so it's very simple. If you want to get to your next level, so for you, maybe that's growing your business, finding the right partner, deepening your relationships, making more money, maybe it's everything in between. If you want to get to your next level, you have to have some sort of connection, right? Because the body's, this physical world is limited. Our soul, our consciousness can be unlimited. In fact, we're only limited by our own consciousness. So the more that we work on that, the more we elevate our soul, the more possibilities, opportunities, and the amount of blessings and miracles we can experience and receive every single day increases. So now that you know that, now that everybody listening knows that, what's your decision? Is that a priority for you? Or do you want to just keep putting out fires and focus on those things first and being reactive? Everybody has a choice.
Over the last, call it now, 6 years since pandemic happened and you came into this rebirth of Craig and this new world, what's been the maybe most rewarding part of this whole thing? Obviously, it's spiritual work. There's a lot of, long tail lag that comes with putting the work in. You don't necessarily recognize the benefits immediately, but how do you stay disciplined on a daily basis for this? Obviously, you're deep in this practice now. You're 6 years plus into doing the work, receiving the downloads, and seeing this kind of untethered soul that we all have. But what's that been like for you?
It's very simple. So I'm devoted, right? Some people are interested, some people are committed. To me, this is a devotion. I've devoted my life to helping people and creating impact, and we have a huge event coming up in March. And these are things that provide vehicles and opportunities for people to experience transformations. So, for me, and by the way, we talked about this earlier, I love, obsessed with what we do. Like the fact that this is considered work right now, me and you having this awesome conversation, hopefully a lot of people will hear it and be impacted by it in some capacity. It's the best thing in the world. So that's why I always say the winning ticket in life is to find what you love, what you're good at, what your gifts are, bring it to the world and share it, find a way to monetize it. And if you could do that, I mean, how blessed are you? Right? So it's not very difficult for me to wait. To be honest, you know what's difficult for me? Stop working. I remember the other day, maybe about a week ago, told my wife I was going to go to the coffee shop and just, sometimes I like to switch up the environment. I'm in New York City, different energy, and just do a little work. I'll be back soon, maybe like a half hour. I came back 5 hours later. I actually had to set an alarm to stop working because I was so in the zone. I just love it so much. It's so fun. It's exciting. It's building. It's expanding. We're elevating souls, making money. It's amazing. So that's why it's so important to find your thing. Everybody has a purpose. They have gifts. Sometimes purposes change in different seasons. I want to be clear about that. But our soul is here for a big reason. And it's our responsibility to find out what that is and find a way to share it with the world in some capacity. Absolutely no question about it.
One thing I find both amazing and confusing about New York anytime I traveled there for work is there's so many people, there's so much energy, there's so much to download, even just walking on any street, you drop yourself in, there's just so much to absorb. So it's very noisy, but I've walked there and depending on my, headspace, I've walked and I feel like I'm floating and, just surfing through the crowd of everybody because of the headspace that I'm in. there's other times where I'm walking through and I'm like, how is this person not seeing how amazing this all is around them? And they're just so, to your point earlier, stuck in the machine and can't see it. I'm sure there's some great Kabbalah teachings off of this, but just out of pure personal curiosity, without myself doing the research, how do you, walk through the streets of Manhattan without judging all the people around you that don't recognize this enlightened state and this beauty of, the universe that's happening all around them, if that makes sense?
Well, you can't judge anybody because everybody has their own process, and by no means am I perfect. Like, there are moments where I have to stop and pause and reconnect to this and take it in and be grateful, right? Because sometimes things become repetitive, so you're not as excited, but that's the work, right? And so for New York City, for example, the concrete jungle, there's a lot of characters. It can be chaotic, sometimes crazy at times, and while that's nuts, it's also part of its charm, right? And so, just like myself, just like you, New York City is not for everybody. There's something really beautiful and inspiring about it. There's just an energy where everybody in the city is ambitious. They're all like striving for something, right? And look, that's a lot to be around 365 days a year, because sometimes you might want to retreat and go to nature or go somewhere with a little bit more quiet. Absolutely. But New York City, there's just a beautiful, special energy that I personally haven't experienced anywhere else. And by the way, like, New York City calls souls in, right? So for some people, they'll thrive here. Other people will get chewed up and swallowed and spit out. It is what it is. In regards to what you said about like not being judgmental and being able to take it in, part of the work is elevating your consciousness so you constantly have an elevated level of awareness. So you can be grateful. So you can take in the moments and not just go through the motions. And look, being judgmental, it's one of the worst things that you could do is judge people, right? And so you always want to be conscious because everybody's going through their own thing. And if I'm judging someone, where's the opportunity for growth there? What does that really mean about me? Why do I feel triggered that I feel like I have to judge someone? I'm certain that there must be a huge opportunity for growth there. And that's the mindset, that's the perspective, and that's the consciousness that you must develop.
Let me ask you this, Craig. If you were to go back in time 15 years and talk to your younger self, would he believe anything about what you're doing now in your current business, current life?
Very unrecognizable. And it's funny because right now there's a trend going, I'm sure you've seen it, 2016. Everybody's
right.
talking about what they looked like 10 years ago. And I took a moment and I looked at my phone and I was scrolling through and saw a couple pictures from 2016. And I do not recognize that guy at all. I'm nothing like that guy. And yet it's me. I just have evolved so much, which I believe is the point of life, right? So someone might say to me, like, wow, you've changed.
Good.
What an amazing compliment, right? And by the way, I think one of the worst things that you can ever say to somebody, especially someone you love, is don't ever change. That's terrible. That's like a spiritual death. We're always evolving. We're always growing. We're always changing. I would say in my specific case, it probably looks a lot different because I don't even really recognize myself from 3 years ago. Like I look at some of the content that I posted when I first started putting stuff out there for CLS, and granted, I didn't have the budget, right? So like, yeah, it looks a little less polished, but even like the way I was showing up, it's just so different because I keep growing. But that was kind of a long-winded answer just to give you context. With the 2016 or the 2011 version recognize or believe what I'm up to, I think there's bits and pieces of what we're up to that has really always been Craig that's really amplified. Like, even though I'm introverted, I always had this personality and I always had this type of energy. I think that it just wasn't organized in the right manners. So I think part of that version of Craig would be like, oh, the writing was on the wall. And then there's another part to be like, who the heck is that guy? He's nothing like this version of me. So I think a little bit of both. I think there's some clues, but there's been a quantum leap of growth where I'm really not even recognizable. I didn't even feel comfortable posting a picture of 2016. I did post one on a story because it's like two different people almost.
It's kind of a blessing that
That's exciting for people because it just goes to show you that if you want to make big changes in your life, my bad, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it doesn't take time. It just takes alignment. Everything can change in a short amount of time when you really get connected and get aligned.
couldn't agree more. And it's, I mean, looking back on old pictures, it can be cringy and uncomfortable. But it's also such a blessing that we have this, digital yearbook, if you will, of what we looked like, sounded like,
It's
spoke
cool.
like so long ago. In the same way of why journaling is so great, because you can look back to what you were writing, because our minds can lie to us all the time about what we might have been thinking or feeling in history. But, you can't ignore the truth, whether it's written on paper. Maybe nowadays with AI, it's a little different about what's coming out and what's getting posted on socials. But at least for some of our old from our old documentation, it's good to see what's out there so that you can have something to look back on.
Mhm. Totally. And by the way, keep growing to everybody, keep evolving, be unrecognizable, right? It just so happens like a lot of people were on a similar path. And so when they show pictures of themselves from 10 years ago, it was cringy, but they were on the same trajectory. Me, I was in like a completely different timeline.
Right.
Like I jumped timelines, is what I'm trying to say. Um, but it's a good question, buddy, because change is the only constant. And I welcome everybody to embrace it and get feedback and listen. If you're not loving something, is this an opportunity for you to work harder at it? Or is it because it's become misaligned and it's time to pivot? So I think evolution and change is one of the most beautiful things about this human experience.
Let me ask you this, because there's something very interesting. You mentioned the quantum leap. We've been talking about downloads and getting connected with, what the universe is telling you, or,
Of course. Yeah.
instructing, right? However you want to take that. But as you think about planning, it's an interesting concept around, all of the cliches. We make plans and God laughs. But how does somebody in your state of consciousness think about forecasting and thinking about the next 5 years of the business, yourself personally, and your growth? How do you think about that as it relates to, downloads and the connected soul?
So the idea is to be intentional. I think having standards, having goals, keep life fun and exciting, give you direction, but don't be attached, right? So marry the process, divorce the outcome. Realize that you're not really running the show. And when you bring that type of endless energy, again, I'll say creator, but I know everyone maybe has a little bit of a different playing field. Let's just all agree that there's an endless energy out there. When you bring that into the situation, when you channel that energy, you're guided, right? So don't wake up every day and say, oh, let's throw a dart at the dartboard. Have an intention, absolutely, but be open to adjustments, be open to something better. That's what it's all about. Like this or something better. What else is possible? So I set goals. I look at years, a calendar year as like a sample size. So if you asked me how a specific year was, and I love to journal on this, every December, I can have an idea of how a specific year was. But now it's like I have different types of intentions and goals. Like for example, whereas I used to set income goals, now I set tithing goals, meaning how much do I want to give away and give back? Because I know whatever number I select for that, now I can partner with Creator to bring me the other 90%, right? So let's say I wanted to give away 500,000 this year. I'm basically saying, Creator, please partner with me and bring me the 5 million. So I just do things a little bit differently with a little bit more consciousness. And I make sure that I'm always co-creating. So I bring creator into the conversations.
I think one of the things that was a very helpful backdrop, because in the business sense, it's sometimes hard to grasp how to set goals, be open to everything, attached to nothing when you have important deadlines or KPIs or whatever it might be to hit. I think one thing that you do very well as Dave Meltzer and a bunch of others is how to tie in the spiritual world with the business world, which I think is something that's so hard to grasp in such a results and metrics driven world. So what advice would you have for the business owners listening to this who are saying, hey, I want to be in this elevated state, want to be a spiritual being, but I have deadlines and business metrics I need to stack up for, as it relates to, you talked about intentions and these kind of like reverse engineering of building goals. But how do you actually, like, what advice would you have for actually applying that on top of what you just outlined?
It's not either or, right? It's also and. You can be super ambitious and audacious and spiritual, right? So I think there's a misconception there. It's funny because even like the nature of what we do, right? So someone might say, well, if all you want to do is help people, then how come you charge, right? And on a spiritual level, if you give things to people for free, you're limiting the energy that they can receive from it
Mm.
because there's energetic exchange, right? So let's say I was coaching somebody, or our event, March 5th, Genesis. If I just gave away tickets, that person that got a free ticket can now receive less than someone else that paid a little bit more. That's a spiritual law, right? So you can be ambitious, you can be excited, you could set goals, and you can be spiritual. You could bring consciousness into all of it. So I want to change the narrative that it's not an either or. The idea is to be audacious, to be driven, to be excited, and be spiritual.
You've had the opportunity to collaborate with a bunch of, modern day gurus in this space. Is there anyone that you haven't been able to connect with? You mentioned ET earlier and Tony Robbins. Is there anyone you haven't been able to connect with that you'd love to, trade notes with?
Yes, but it's not the person you might think. It's not someone that would be categorized in the personal development space, but it's someone that has inspired me. And I know it's a controversial figure. And by the way, not everybody is perfect. Everybody's got their own thing. So you take what you like, take the fruit, leave the peel. But someone that I would have a desire to sit down and have lunch with, and maybe ask some questions and go over some notes, would be Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Why Arnold?
That guy thinks so big. He has no limitation that I can see. Just his story, I was very fascinated with. He came from a different country. His idea was, I want to be the greatest bodybuilder that ever lived, and then leverage that notoriety into becoming the greatest movie star ever, and then leverage that and get into politics. Like, the guy saw no limitation. And I'm really fascinated with this idea of quantum leaps. I think that incremental progress is outdated and it's boring. And no disrespect to anybody, but like when people say just get 1% better every day, but why not quantum leap? Like, why are we settling for just a little bit better? Now, if that's your baseline, that's great. Keep improving. I get it. But like last year, like I really started studying the psychology and the science behind the quantum leap, and my life last year, I mean, business, everything, quantum leaped. Like it wasn't even close. And so when I look at Arnold, I just see a guy that was never phased by circumstance, constraint, or limitation. He just thought so big, and he just played a bigger game than everyone. And I'm fascinated by that. And if I'm being honest, when I was growing up, I happened to really like his movies. So that's why I chose Arnold.
That works. Now, maybe not for this example, but for some of these other, maybe it's a person you want to coach or a venue you want to book for an event. Do you think about that intentionally in your download sessions in your morning routine? How does that incorporate into, or how do your like goals and aspirations, whether you call it materialistic, even if it's just meeting a person or hosting an event at a place, do you incorporate that into your, morning routine as it relates to downloads?
Absolutely. But I don't limit myself, right? So let's say I want a specific venue or I wanted an opportunity to come through. I would pray about it. I would say, if this is a good opportunity for us, let's make it happen in a big way. And if it's not, let's expedite that as well.
Yeah.
Because I don't pretend to think that I am calling the shots here. Our job is to be a channel, right? And so one of the things I've learned, and one of the things that the Wisdom of Kabbalah has really helped with, is that when people don't give or share, they cut off that circuitry, right? And so it's like picture a channel that has a bottom to it. It can't go, right? So you can't, it could receive, but it can't go through. So the idea is to keep that circuitry going. That's why you give away money and you tithe and you share and you give. And it's always for the sake of sharing. The moment you want to do things for yourself, it's a selfish desire and it's connected to the ego consciousness. And either you won't be able to get it, it'll be sabotaged, it won't last, or it won't be fulfilling. But when you're asking for things for the sake of sharing them, then the amount of light that you can reveal, the amount of abundance that might be affiliated with the situation is endless.
It's like that concept around currency where it's related to water and you have to keep the current going in order for the money to keep flowing back to you. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, it's similar. It's like a different way of saying it,
Yeah.
but absolutely.
I personally struggle so much with this, that egoic battle around building something meaningful and providing a lot of value, but also, you know, checking in to my own personal needs. And to your point earlier, maybe it's a question for self of like, why do I feel the need to, build a business for my own, to serve myself on top of other people? How do you balance the, again, you mentioned earlier, it goes back to probably the question I need to spend time downloading myself, but maybe just for, unprompted advice session for the last couple minutes here. What advice would you have for me as I think about building this business, wanting to, fulfill my own intentions and desires, but also serving others at the same time? That's something I really kind of struggle with right now.
Well, which one is it? Is it for the sake of serving other people, or is it for your own selfish desires?
I feel like it's both. I mean, I think that the ideas that we're building will both help a lot of people and help myself as well.
How would it help yourself?
Because I believe what we're building is something that's going to be beneficial to me and my business, whether it's this one or the next one, or going back to get a regular job. I think that it's a software that's needed across the board. So that's why both it's something that will serve me as a user, but also our users as well.
But needed across the board is what I heard you say. So other people are going to really get value from this.
That's the goal, and so far that seems to be the case.
So that's the consciousness. That's what you really want to connect to, right? So be unattached by the notoriety, the awards, the accolades, how much money you might be able to make doing it. If you could be unattached to that, not saying I don't want it. Sure, the idea is to want everything, but need nothing, right? So unattached to that, I know there's a pain point here. There's an unmet need for this device, software, whatever it is, and I want to create something that can provide it to so many different people so it can help them. If you can reconnect to that, then the amount of miracles, blessings, and the growth that this project can have is endless. But the very moment it really is about you, about posting about looking cool, about making a certain amount of money first, then the whole experience, the whole project will be limited. And if you are able to get what you think you wanted, you won't be fulfilled. Could you reconnect to the mission and reconnect to why you're doing this and purify your intention? How willing would you be to do that?
Yeah. That's what I needed to hear. Yeah. Let me ask this, Craig, for those who are unfamiliar with CLS before this, give us the quick rundown. I know you said you have an event March 5th at Genesis, I believe, but tell us what we need to know about CLS, what you're up to these next couple of weeks and next couple months.
Think spirituality and business, finding your thing, making a huge impact, playing bigger, and making a lot of money doing it. If any of those things appeal to you, then plug in. We have a podcast, the CLS Experience. We have our book, the Reinvention Formula. There's many different things that we offer that we do. We have membership level 1, we have level 2, we have level 3, we have 101. We do these workshops. We speak all over. We deliver workshops to companies. But something that I'm really excited about right now is on March 5th, we have a big live event in New York City. It's called Genesis. It's the sequel to an event that we did last October called The Portal. And we have some amazing speakers there. One of the most powerful Kabbalah teachers on the planet, Eitan Yardeni. He's the personal spiritual advisor of some of the world's most elites, such as Madonna and others. We have Dr. Armani, who's arguably the number one narcissist expert on the planet. We just have a lot of different amazing experts in their own fields. And the reason I'm so passionate about this is because I've seen what happens when you get a lot of good souls in one room and the energy is pure. Everybody elevates permanently. You leave a different soul that walked in. And there's such power in community and being around that type of energy. It opens things up. It creates new pathways. It removes limiting beliefs. And so I'm really excited about that, about getting people in that room. We just put something on the website, which is to pay what feels right for you. So money shouldn't be in the way of anybody if they really want to be in that room. And it's just one of the really cool things that we're building, along with a million other things that we're up to, is creating these experiences for people to really tap in and be able to get to their next level in real time. So I would say that's something I'm really excited about. And then if you like inspirational nuggets throughout the week or a piece of wisdom here and there, we have a free texting community. You can just text 917-634-3796, and it's totally free. Just plug in and receive downloads and all good things. If this resonates with you, stay connected.
Tap in, folks. I'll put it in the show notes as well. Craig, maybe last question for you. I used to ask this in a lot of my early episodes as the first question, which was, what will your walk-up song be? And I'm curious, just given your mindset, your headspace, also being in New York, what would your walk-up song be? I know you do a lot of speeches, maybe for the March 5th event. Do you have a song in mind that you'd want to be playing on stage if that were a possibility?
When you say a walk-up song, like entrance music,
like entrance music, as if you were, going to bat at bottom of the 7th in the World Series, or
I think of I'm a nerd, so I love the WWE. I think each wrestler comes out to a different theme.
Exactly.
Look, it really depends on the season. Like, we had a weird song that I really loved that was high energy for the last event. Just by default, I would say something from Rocky.
Yeah.
Probably either Tiger, or I really love No Easy Way Out from Rocky IV. I think those can never go wrong. But depending upon the season and what song I'm really into that I think reflects the theme and the energy of the event, I would probably choose that one.
I love it. Craig, appreciate your time. Thanks for all the nuggets of wisdom. I'm going to go and listen to this again right after this because I need some download. So really appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me, brother.